Patrice Gibbs here, your third eye optometrist. All right. You know, it's something, oh, yeah, I got it, okay. It's something that so many of us are influenced by the education that we receive in the Western world. And though we mean well, we often get it wrong. Okay? Case in point, the Voice of Africa, who felt that they had a teaching moment. And what they're teaching is that there was a period in Egypt when there were Black Pharaohs. I'm going to go over some of this for you, okay? And why I say they got it wrong. All right? And I remember, and I wonder if maybe they got it from there. I remember thinking the 70s, Ebony Magazine put out an issue with the cover, The Black Pharaohs. And this is what they say. Did you know that besides the black leaders and queens of ancient Africa, Egypt, there were men that ruled known as the Black Pharaohs? Yes, the Black Pharaohs. Now, who named them the Black Pharaohs? Because you got to remember that Egyptology is not a science. Egyptology is an information control apparatus. That's all it is. Now, you ever heard of Romanology? You ever heard of Britanology or Francenology? Because they don't feel the need to control something that they already have control of, the history of these different empires and countries and what have you, but they have a need to control Egypt. Where did the name Egypt come from? It comes from the Greeks, okay? For 3,000 years, Egypt was known as Kemet. And when Egypt was at the low end of its existence, you know, it was really ready to fall. Okay, the Greeks came in. Alexander the Greek, I don't call him the Great, and nothing real great about him. They started calling it Egypt, and he left his General Ptolemy there, and that's a whole history. But what these quote-unquote students of history say, the Black Pharaohs were rulers of Egypt during the 25th dynasty. Okay, and the 25th dynasty was from like 747 to 656 BC. Okay, a period when the kingdom of Kush, modern-day Sudan, extended its influence over Egypt. These rulers are often referred to as Kushite pharaohs, and their reign marked an era of revitalization and cultural exchange between Egypt and its southern neighbor. And they named some of the well-known pharaohs of that era, of that dynasty. Pianki, who was the founder. Okay, he came into Egypt, you know, and he unified Kushite. You're gonna find it under Kushite rule, starting from Nubia, Shabaka. He strengthened the dynasty. Taharka, he's one of the most famous so-called Black Pharaohs, known for his military campaigns and monumental construction projects and what have you. Yes, the 25th dynasty. That's very late in Egypt's history, which date back to some 3,000 years, according to, of course, Egyptologists. It actually probably dates back to some 10,000 years. And the reason they can't find the primitive state of Egypt, because Egypt came into existence at the height of its technological adulthood. There was the 4th dynasty, the 5th dynasty, the well-known 18th dynasty. I got something here. throne in the 25th dynasty. Yeah. The 18th dynasty, which is probably one of the most well-known dynasties. Okay. And what you have to understand about Egypt's southern neighbor and Kemet to the north is that these were their cousins. And man, you know, you have to look at it like you look at Britain and America. All right? They're basically their descendants. That's why they came into existence at the height of their technological adulthood. Because they came out of the south and moved north with this technology all in place. That's why Egyptologists can't find Egypt's primitive state, because they don't know where to look. Okay, and you have the 18th dynasty, which was an African dynasty. The dynasties from the first dynasty probably up until after the 25th dynasty were all black Africans. It wasn't until the Ptolemies and what other groups came in, some of the Asians and what have you. And when some of these groups came in, Kemet's cousins, Nubia, Kush, and what have you from the south, came up and helped run these people out and put the Africans back on the throne. That's why you had people like Hatshepsut in the 18th dynasty, who was the longest reigning woman of an indigenous dynasty. Thutmose III, a skilled warrior who expanded Egypt's empire. Amenhotep III, who built the Luxor temple. Okay? And the precinct of Montu at Karnak in his mortuary temple. Amenhotep IV, who changed his name to Akhenaten to honor the Egyptian god Ra. Okay? And of course, Akhenaten is considered the founder of monotheism. And of course, Tutankhamun, whose tomb was discovered and robbed by Howard Carter in 1922. Then you had the 19th dynasty, which was another very significant dynasty. And why was it so significant? Well, one of their most well-known pharaohs was one that we call, with great reverence, the great ancestor. And that's Ramses. And he's without a doubt probably the most important figure in the history of ancient Egypt. And when you consider that the list of pharaohs includes some of the greatest names in history, it says a lot to place Ramses at the top of that list. Hey, Bessie, I see you. Pharaoh Seti named Ramses II his firstborn Prince Regent, heir to the throne, when he was 14 years old. And stop believing that crap in movies, because there was never any competition for the throne or for his father's affection from some fictional character named Moses. Now, due to his father's intense training, Ramses was a military commander at 16. Under Seti's tutelage, he gained the skills and character to sit on the throne while he was still a teenager. This was centuries before the 25th dynasty and the so-called Black Pharaohs. Ramses sat on the throne at 25 years old and ruled until his death at 91. He ruled 66 years, the longest ruling pharaoh in the history of Egypt. And he expanded the empire, built temples, monuments, and cities. And by the time Ramses sat on the throne, the 19th dynasty, which was the second dynasty of the New Kingdom era, all right, the 18th century being the first, it was the second dynasty of the New Kingdom era. All right, they were so advanced by that time that Ramses could look over, you know, the landscape of the empire and say, see that empty spot there? Build me a city. Okay? And within 10 years, his craftsmen, architects, and builders would have a city up and running. So when you talk about the Black Pharaohs, do a little more studying. Because it didn't start with the 25th dynasty, it started with the first. I'm Patrice Gibbs. It's a dope and I.